Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be taking this piece of rebar and forging a small letter opener dagger. Now this dagger is going to be a little bit different compared to what I usually do. It's going to be an integral build, which means that there's going to be the blade and then there's going to be a round piece of the original rebar and then our handle material. First we'll start by firing up the forge and getting this piece heated up, then we'll forge it out. I'm going to start by forging a taper down the end of this piece and then flatten it out and making our bevels. So why am I using rebar for this project? Well, I think it's good for a lot of smiths to use old steel to forge and make knives out of because it's good practice to shape steel, make square stock round, round stock square, flat stock, etc. And also I like to use scrap steel because it's cheap, as usual. Some people on Facebook have given me flack about using stuff like rebar because it's a lower carbon steel. So that's why we're making this as a letter opener. It's not going to be used for any kind of cutting or slashing. This is more of a display piece. The next section is beveling. Now beveling is the process of taking the sides or the blade edge and forging it down. It's a lot harder when you're using a double-edged blade because there's two and you got to make sure that they're square with each other. If you forge too much on one side of the blade, it'll be all cattywampus compared to the other side. Next, we'll hot cut the piece and then we'll take it over and forge down the handles. Now usually for a dagger I would forge a hidden tang, which is the process of forging a tang that slides into a guard out of a block of wood and make a handle out of. But on this one we're going to do a full tang since this is an integral build. I'm going to forge this as close as I can to the shape so there'll be less grinding to do and we get to maximize the most amount of material. So we're going to cross peen it and stretch it out and give us room to put our handle scales on. After forging it out, I'm going to take it over to the vise and square up the blade bevels. The tang's not 100% straight too with the bevel, so I'm going to turn that just a little bit to get the match. Then we're going to heat it up and do 2 thermal cycles, and then after the thermal cycles we'll go in for the quench. This is the second thermal cycle. And then we're going to take it over and quench it in Parks 50 oil. Now if you would make an actual rebar knife, I would almost recommend quenching in water because water is the fastest quench and it'll get a little bit harder HRC. But as you'll see on the quench, we got this pretty hard in the Parks 50. After checking it with the files, it pops up as 60 HRC out of the quench. A letter opener doesn't have to be quite this hard, so I'm going to put it in the tempering oven and heat it to about 350. The oven is not accurate at all, that's why I have 2 temperature gauges inside so I can monitor the heat. I'm going to do 2 cycles at 30 minutes each, then I'll pull it out and start grinding. I start grinding using a 36 grit belt and going all the way up to 230 or 250, whatever that gray belt is. Because I took the time hammering this blade, it was actually pretty easy to grind and it didn't take very long. This is rough, the 36 grit belt, it looks really nice. I'm really liking this knife. Now we're going to start hand sanding. I'm going to start this blade at 150 grit and go all the way up to 800 grit. Hand sanding a double-edged knife is a little bit harder because there's 4 bevels to do instead of 1, so keeping a straight line or the center line is a little bit difficult. Then I'll take it over to the anvil and tap in some holes to start drilling. We'll drill out 2 holes for pins for our handle scales. Now for our handle scales, I'm going to use these nice blue sky micarta handles. I think it'll go really well with a nice polished blade. After a bit of grinding, this is what it's going to look like. Now it's got to work down the handle scales and round them and make them fit into the integral slots. I'm going to hand sand these up to 800 grit as well. After the glue up, we'll do some more hand sanding and get these nice and rounded. So here it is, all cleaned up and looking pretty. I really like how this fit up is on these integral handles. I've never done it before, so for a first time, I think I did pretty well. Anyway, what do you guys think? Thank you all so much for watching. You all have a great one.